This is the all-new 2023 Genesis GV60. It's an all-electric, all-wheel drive compact luxury crossover that packs more than 500 pound-feet of torque. In that little thing? Yeah, is it any good? We're going to find out right now on Driving Sports TV. Ever since Genesis was hatched from its parent Hyundai a few years ago, it has continued to change and move forward the luxury market. Every vehicle they've released has had great features, innovative technology, and competitive pricing. What I have here is perhaps the most important Genesis I've ever driven. It is an all-electric, all-wheel drive, high-performance, compact luxury crossover called the GV60 Performance. Price as you see it here, $69,560 US including destination. The only option is $575 for special white paint. Though this Genesis does share parts with the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6, it is a lot more than just a badge swap. The interior of the Genesis is more sophisticated. It comes with Bang & Olufsen sound, and the outside evokes classic Aston Martin design cues. The powertrain is also tuned to be more interesting for luxury buyers. At this trim level, it comes standard with not one, but two 160 kilowatt electric motors, one on the front axle and another on the back. This provides the GV60 with advanced all-wheel drive. It also produces up to 483 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque. But it does that with a catch. We'll come back to that later. The integrated battery is a 77.4 kilowatt hour unit that provides up to 235 miles of range at this trim level. A heat pump is standard to keep it operating at optimal temperatures. An 800-volt architecture allows for fast charging from 10 to 80% capacity in less than 20 minutes. Your eyes probably go straight to these wheels, and by all rights they should, because these are gorgeous. They're 21-inch units wrapped in Michelin Primacy Tour AS tires at a 255/40 R21 fitment. Even though the wheels and tires definitely say this is a street-only crossover, you do get benefits of cargo capacity given the crossover packaging. What we have here is 24 cubic feet of total capacity. With those seats folded flat, you're now looking at 54.7 cubic feet overall. Under the floor is a fix-a-flat kit, and that's about it. But can you sleep in it? Let's see. Not really comfortable, but it is doable. Nice view out of the panorama sunroof though. Okay, let's check out this second row. Ooh, it's a bit snug. My feet do hit the seat in front of me. I am 6'1", legs torso proportionate. That's where I would be sitting if I were driving, and yeah, it definitely compromises the second row. I do have a lot of good stuff back here though. I got my own cup holder here, got a blind. Down here I have two USB-C sockets, and I even have an armrest with integrated cup holders. Conspicuously missing, however, my own aircon. I do get a vent, but that's about it. Now the key has some cool stuff going for it. First off, it looks like Louis Vuitton luggage. Not exactly my favorite look, but you know, whatever. With it, we can start it, lock, and then hold to start. Okay, it's now started up. What can we do, you might ask? Well, we can move it out of its parking spot. You ever have those times where you're in a parking spot and it's too narrow to get into the vehicle? Well, you just let your vehicle come to you. And of course, yes, I can back it up as well. Now, this isn't a new feature. They've had this on prior Genesis vehicles, and you can even get it on some Hyundais as well. But it's still kind of a cool feature. That is not all, however. Let's go ahead and shut that off. For the next demonstration, I don't even need the key. Oh no, I don't have a key. How am I ever going to get into my car? This has been an issue, right? Well, with this vehicle, it'll scan my face and let me in. I can even start it up and drive away, all without needing a key. Now, couple things that strike me immediately. This really kind of reminds me of a Mini. Yeah, and I'm not sure that's actually a good thing. The thing that is really bringing that to the forefront here are all of these circular elements that don't need to be this big and gawky and round, and yet here they are. Like, why is that door pull completely round? That doesn't look sophisticated to me. That just looks like, well, something on a Mini. Huh. Now, over here, we do have a push start. Let's fire that up. Now, I can either start the vehicle with a key in my pocket, or I can do it with biometric. So with biometric, I basically just put my finger right here. It says you've been scanned, and then I can hit the start button. That way, I don't actually ever have to have my key with me. I can still access my vehicle. And also, you don't need a phone or a watch or anything. You bring what you always have with you, your face and your finger. Now, the first thing that you probably noticed when I powered this up, I'm going to power it up yet again, is this thing. What is this, you may ask? It's unnecessary. That's what it is. It's cool for the first time, and then it's like, why? Why does it do that? Do you need to hide your transmission selector or your drive selector? Is this something that you don't want to reveal to the world? Is this something that will tarnish with direct sun? I just don't know. Why is it hiding it? And why is it under this glass thing that looked like it should be telling my fortune or scanning my palm or something like that? Actually, it looks like a big eyeball. Now it's kind of creeping me out. Touch the eyeball. Oh boy. Okay, moving on. So we've covered that it looks like a Mini, has an unnecessary spinny thing, but also has some cool biometric stuff. Great. The rest of this actually is quite nice. The materials are very high quality. That's nice leather there. Also, we have metal actually in the steering wheel that feels like metal, which is good. We do have paddle shifters here, but they're not shifters per se, because this is, of course, an electric car. It doesn't really need gears. These are for modifying the regen braking. So you can go from everything from single pedal driving all the way down to free rolling like a traditional car would. That's for your own personal preferences. And I gotta say, there's a lot of buttons here. It's a little overwhelming because not only do we have lever, button, button, pedal, whatever, we also have one of the things that used to be on the Mercedes or is on like the Mercedes S-Class, which are these little pressure sensitive swipey things, which I do like these. I think these are really cool, but there's just so much going on here. And then on top of it, we have drive mode select on the bottom left. And then we also have this boost button. So you might be asking, what's a boost button? Remember at the start when I said this had 516 pound-feet of torque and 483 horsepower? Well, that is when you have hit the boost button. For 10 seconds, you get maximum output. And it's fun. And yes, we're going to do it a little bit later in this review. Without boost engaged, you're actually looking at 429 horsepower, which is still pretty good. So no complaints here. I actually like the idea of having like really excessive power with a push of a button. That's kind of fun. Now, as far as this whole display goes, in the Ioniq 5, I really like the same kind of basic design. It's two screens that are kind of blended together to look like one continuous display. And I think it works really well here. Everything is very clear. I love that I can just kind of change my display data here. I can look between drive info, I can have a map, or I can also have my safety stuff, because of course this is absolutely loaded. Stuff that you would spend extra money on a BMW or a Mercedes, here it just comes standard. Adaptive cruise control with lane centering, standard. Blind spot warning, standard. Rear cross traffic alerts and a surround view camera, standard. So you got a lot of good stuff going on here. You know, you could look at a base trim Mercedes and BMW and compare it versus the Genesis and go, well, you know, the BMW is a good deal, until you actually start matching feature to feature. And then at that point, the Genesis really pulls out ahead because they just include a lot of stuff. Now, that's the same formula that Acura did when it first came to the States many years ago, where everybody else was charging for navigation. Acura just included it, and that was a very smart move on their part. Now up here we do have a slightly different interface than what you would get on either the EV6 from Kia or the Ioniq 5 from Hyundai. We have pictures, which I guess look a little more sophisticated, to be able to navigate to the different various things you can see on the screen. And I can of course either touch it or I can use the knob if I prefer to use the knob. Let's look at the map, for example. Let's do a voice search. Coffee shop.
20 results found.
Okay.
Please proceed to the highlighted route. Then the route guidance will start.
So it gives me a map over here with the navigation, and it also gives me turn by turn on my heads-up display. Other features in this system are, of course, we can look at the EV status, and this is kind of neat. It shows you how close is the closest charging station on your overall charging route. I don't actually have a route input, but you know, it's guessing. Of the 208 miles that I have currently as my range at 85% of total charge, they would recommend me going to this Tesla destination, which is a kind of a weird thing to suggest because this doesn't use a Tesla charger. So clearly it's just pulling generic data. Ironically, right next to that charger, I happen to know there is an Electrify America station, which I have charged this car at and does work. So that's really what it should be showing me. I'm not sure why it's showing me Tesla there. That's a bit weird. Though there are a lot of buttons here, there's actually a couple that I really like, and that is the dot on the left and the star on the right. Those can be customized to whatever feature you want, I mean, within reason. I could do custom button, star steering wheel to either reject end call, set privacy mode, go to map, reroute, a bunch of things. So I like the fact that you can do some customizations here. That's nice. Some other stuff here on the infotainment system is you can set up voice memos if you want. I can actually map those to one of the pre-programmed custom buttons if I like. There's a lot of media options. Of course, you can do Sirius XM satellite radio as well as terrestrial FM and AM. Now, kind of weird on a luxury vehicle is this does support Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. However, it does not support wireless. You have to be plugged in, which just don't get that. I do have a charging pad up here, so that is nice. But if I'm plugged in, I'm going to be plugged in down here, and I guess I'll throw them into the bin down there as well too. Oh, a nice feature that this vehicle does have that you're starting to not see on all electric cars is that 12-volt socket down there. That is a classic interface, and I still use those a lot, so I'm glad to see that here. It just allows you to plug in a lot of different electric accessories. Now, in terms of the seat, there are a lot of options here for comfort. Both the driver and passenger side are powered, which is neat. And you have this thing called Smart Posture Assist. While driving, it'll just out of the blue adjust your lumbar, which is kind of nice. I would like a full-on massage, but they're not going to call it a massage. They're just going to call it a Smart Posture Assist, not a full massage, I guess. Well, of course, up here you can also control the bodacious Bang & Olufsen audio system and go to setup here, sound, and then from here I can use the reference or surround audio. I can basically set up a whole bunch of different options here. I'm usually pretty good with defaults. And the sound system is really good in this, so that is a win right there. We do have a nice panorama sunroof. Do note that it is kind of a really heavily tinted sunroof, so you don't actually see a lot of light through it. It's actually surprisingly dark in here, even when it's completely open. Although I guess if you live in California, it's not going to be too bright in here, so I guess that's a win. headliner feels like suede. These seats are actual leather on entry-level trims that are synthetic. So if you're into this, great. Yeah, overall, this interior, I don't love the design as far as like this contrast stitching. I think that it's a little, it just says Mini to me, and doesn't make me feel good about it. Maybe I'll feel better after I get to try this boost mode. So let's buckle up and head out. Away we go. Ooh, power. That feels good. Of course, this does have a ridiculous amount of power, and that is courtesy of the 77 kilowatt hour battery attached to 260 kilowatt electric motors, one in the front, one in the back. What that totals is 483 horsepower and more than 500 pound-feet of torque. But there are caveats attached to that. It only actually achieves that maximum output when you hit the boost button. Otherwise, you're looking at only about 429 horsepower. So, you know, that's nice. Speaking of the horsepower, I really want to see what this will do in a 0 to 60 situation. So I'm going to pull down right here. Got a nice straight line, mostly level. It's in drive. Let's go ahead and switch it to sport, and let's see what it does for 0 to 60. No boost. 3, 2, 1, and go. Whoa, that's a lot of power. Ooh, 4.22 seconds. Wow, that's properly quick. And of course, there's no drama because it's electric. So we did 4.22 seconds in regular sport mode. How much quicker is it with boost enabled? Let's find out. I'm going to stop completely. Let's go ahead and hit boost. Now I have this for 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, go. Mercy! Wheel spin and 60. 3.88 seconds. Wow. That's intense. That's faster than a BMW i4, which is a really quick car. So let's go ahead and set up my mode with ELSD on for sport, comfort, sport, steering, sport, motor, sport, and the ESC off. So there's basically a track mode if we do that. So I'm curious, with ESC off, do we get any wheel spin here? Let's kind of hold this down here. Oh, yep, now it's all shut off. That's kind of cool. And then if we just punch it, what happens? Oh, four-wheel burnout. Of course. Oh man, this thing is going to be it'd be quite a handful in this mode. I'm going to go ahead and put it back to sport mode because I'm on a public road. Kind of feel like I should have had a track for this one. Oh well. Now, how is the rest of it, you may ask? Well, let's continue our drive and see what we got. So I want to apologize to those of you who are waiting for a review to see how well this does off-road. I will tell you right now, it does not do well. And there's multiple reasons for that. First off, ground clearance. This has streetcar level ground clearance. Also, 21-inch wheels with very little sidewall. Also, no trail mode. There is no like trail power shifting left to right. Now this does have a limited slip differential in the back. It's an e-diff. And that would provide some of that functionality, but since it's not tuned, designed, or focused on any of that, it would not be fair for me to take this off-road. For today, I am looking at how well this thing drives. And you know, just how does it feel to be inside a GV60? Now, this is a very, very important vehicle for Genesis because it is, or was, their very first pure electric. Yeah, they've actually announced others since then, but you know, this was the first one out the door. And I'm just kind of really surprised with, you know, the approach they took here. The interior does not look like your typical Genesis. I mean, there's really high quality materials and it is a very functional and useful space. However, the overuse of circles, I don't know, it just doesn't feel as premium as I would like it to. Now, if you're looking at this vehicle and you're saying, you know, I like the exterior, don't care for the interior, you have two other choices that are very, very similar to this one. You could also look at the Ioniq 5 from Hyundai, and then there's also the EV6 from Kia. They're all built on the same platform, and they share many of the same components. However, they are all tuned slightly different. I loved the power output and just the fun of driving the Ioniq 5. And I'm getting that same kind of feeling here as I hit the throttle and those two electric motors just really kick in the fun. Oh my gosh, so much fun. But, you know, when it really comes down to would I spend 70 grand on a vehicle like this? And the reason I would say no is I don't like this interior. The materials are excellent, but just the overall design, like this useless ball, it's cool the first time, but then I'm after that thinking, why do I want that for? It's overly fussy. I want my vehicle to be a little bit more purpose-driven and not so effervescent, if you know what I mean. This one just seems a little too fun for fun's sake. I have some issues with the design is what I'm saying. Now, as far as the digital gauge cluster and the infotainment, those are both excellent. Although the lack of wireless CarPlay on this display at this price point is just not acceptable. I mean, everybody's having it now. It really makes for a better user experience when it works properly. And I think that it's severely lacking here, and I think they really need to get on their game to add that ASAP. Now we have some other things going on here. Paddle shifters are, of course, not for switching gears because there are no gears in this electric car. Instead, they are used for changing the regen level. And you can go everything from level 0, in which case when you let off the throttle, it just free rolls like a regular car. As I up the levels, 1, 2, 3, I can really feel a lot more of that regen drag. When I lift my foot off the throttle, basically it feels like the brakes are engaging, but it's not actually brakes, it's the regen motors that help bring a lot of power back into the vehicle. And those are very important if you want to eke out maximum range. You have to keep those on. And some people even like to use what's called an iPedal, and that's been something that's been on electric cars for a long time. It basically makes it so you can drive a vehicle with one pedal all the time. When the throttle is down, I go forward. When I lift it off, basically it uses a heavy regen and all the way to a complete stop. Oh boy, that's fast. Now, are you the kind of person who likes iPedal? Well, that's up to you, and thankfully it's really easy to switch it off. I love the fact that it's tied into the paddle shifter setup here, and I don't have to dive into the menus and find options to be able to enable or disable it. So if I lift off completely, do I come to a complete stop? It's slow, and eventually I'm actually pointing downhill, and yeah, complete stop. And then I put my throttle back on, and away I go. So that is a proper iPedal for people who like to, drive in that way. It's kind of more of a video game way of driving, and it's more efficient, I guess, because you're not moving your foot left to right. But I think it's really just a matter of preference, not a big deal. Now, right here we have a nice twisty road, and we can kind of feel the suspension setup here. Let me take it out of iPedal. Kind of go in, tap it in, push that power. I can really feel the power getting pushed to the back of the vehicle because this is, of course, all-wheel drive, and it's a performance-oriented setup. So when I'm going through those corners, as I'm throttling in, I'm feeling more power go to the back. Yeah, I have to say, for a country drive, this is a fantastic vehicle. Now let's talk about range. This vehicle, because it is the performance model and it has so much output from those electric motors, it does have a reduced mileage over, say, the lower output mid-trim, which gets in the high 200s. This one's about 235 for most people, especially if you live in the city. And this would, I think, definitely be targeting more of a city owner. I think that it's a good fit for somebody like that. And it really can charge quickly because this is that 800 volt architecture, which really just makes owning and living with one of these so much nicer. Now, of course, if you own a vehicle like this, you're clearly going to have a level 2 charger at your house. Why wouldn't you? They're fairly inexpensive to put in, and it reduces your cost of ownership massively, because those public chargers, they do charge a premium. I mean, it was $20 to fill it with electricity, and considering how cheap electricity is in the Pacific Northwest, that's kind of a rude charge there. I mean, that's way more. They're making a good profit on that. So yeah, you would obviously have your own charger if you owned one of these. Because this Genesis does come from the factory fully loaded, of course it has adaptive cruise control with lane centering. I can turn them on independently. Let's go ahead and turn on adaptive cruise. We'll turn on lane centering. When the wheel goes green, it's basically keeping us in the center. Now, it uses not just data that the camera sees, it'll also use map data to help navigate around corners and stuff, which is cool. Here we are matching the speed of the vehicle in front of us. It's keeping centered in the lane, and this does support stop and go if you're using it in rush hour. Of course, the intent of using a feature like this is to reduce fatigue on long trips. It is not an autopilot system, but we are getting there, definitely. The suspension on this vehicle is really interesting. It is adaptive, and it uses a collection of data points to be able to determine the way it responds to the road conditions. And it doesn't just use how it's feeling on the road. It'll use a combination of cameras and map data to help set up the vehicle better for corners. And the question I have is, with all of that technology and all of that data, why does it just drive good? Why does it not drive great? I find the suspension is a little bit on the soft side, even in brisk corners like that. And that's a little disappointing, I think. Given that the GV60 here has so much horsepower, it's a compact package. This is like primed to be a straight up Macan-esque competitor, but I feel like the suspension is kind of its weak point. I mean, it's good, but it feels kind of generic. It doesn't feel special. But man, those dual electric motors, those do feel special. Oh yeah, in a very good way. So that's my look at the 2023 Genesis GV60. This is an amazing little compact luxury high performance crossover. It's still rather expensive though. For Driving Sports TV, I'm Ryan Douthit. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again right here real soon. Wow! Man, that's absurd.